name is Shelley. I'm the children's librarian here at Oak Park Public Library. My main job is early literacy, but working with people with special needs is a passion of mine. My younger brother, Josh, turned 30 years old a couple weeks ago, which blows my mind. He has a rare genetic disorder called Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome, which is best understood as a cross between autism and Down syndrome. He has used augmentative communication, AAC, since he was 3 years old. So he was actually one of the early adopters of high-tech AAC. And so I use what I've learned from being Josh's sister and from being friends with families who had other kids growing up with disabilities. And I also have my bachelor's in speech and hearing science. And I used all of those to do a lot of really cool things here at the library for all of our patrons. I've got the presentation loaded at bit.ly/snails219. You can always email me. I love to talk. And so please, I'm willing to answer any question, bat around ideas, it's always fun. And I'm also on Twitter, Red Lip Book Wizard, because what is a librarian other than being a book wizard? But I do tweet a lot about special needs and disabilities and acceptance and awareness. And I just got back from a conference that will come up later, and I've got a lot of retweets from that had, oh, you guys, this conference was so cool. So, there's sort of a baseline, and here we go. This past year, we broadened our programming beyond story times. I've already talked about how we rebranded it as Supported, and that has gone really well. And so here are some of the things that we've been doing. Supported yoga. Good timing, right? So we've been really lucky to find there's a lot of local therapists who have also been certified in yoga. Right now, our partner is Natalie Toomey, who has a bilingual speech therapy clinic here in town. And so she comes in and she'll just do free classes. And then we do keep her materials out and available for anyone who wants to reach out to her. And that has worked really well. So as you can see here, we got a picture of young boy in a yoga pose with his caregiver. Everything is caregiver and kid teams. I did a search on Google for Oak Park Yoga, is basically what I did, and I took a look at who came up. And so there was Natalie, and there was also another music therapy clinic down the street that did yoga for kids with special needs, and I just reached out to them. And so they were our partner for a couple of years. And as partnerships with free programming do, it fades, which is great. So we've got Natalie now. But just take a look around, do some Googling, and you might find that there's people in your area that can come in with a great amount of experience and help you out for free too. Guys, supported musical theater. So we're lucky enough to have a local theater company, Ovation Academy, right here in town, and they work with kids. I think 5 to 18 or something like that is their main age range. But they recently started doing classes for kids with special needs too. So they're always putting on shows and doing stuff. And we've had them come in for other things. They came in and they taught a Hamilton class where we learned choreography, and it was, you guys, it was amazing. It was the best way to spend that hot July day. But I brought them in to do Moana as a supported program. I will not lie, this was our best attended supported program ever. We ended up doing it twice. We did it later that summer because it was such a hit. But it was so cool because they taught the kids choreography. They taught some games. You can see underneath the boy in the grass skirt having the time of his life. They made shaker rice. And so they just, were able to fill it up with whatever color rice they wanted to, and we taped it up with whatever fancy color tape that they wanted to use, and they got to use that in their dancing and their singing. And it was magnificent. we could do is go over and chat with them, you know, keep them engaged in what was going on. Other times we just sat and watched with them because shows need audiences. That's a perfectly valid role. And so kids would just move in and out as they wanted to. Maybe they learned the choreography, but then they just needed a break. That's cool. They just sit and do a break. They come back in whenever they are ready. It was a really, really fun afternoon. And I love that because one of the ideas, part of our rebranding, is I really wanted to increase our age range. We get a lot of preschoolers and kindergartners. I want those big kids. I know they're there. And I've got this 9-year-old who did years of story times with me, and he's like, Miss Shelley, I don't want to come with the babies anymore. I'm like, I know you don't. So musical theater and yoga really appealed to a lot of older kids too. You can actually see him dancing there. He is a little boy in black and gray in the back, just like beaming as he's hopping around. So we're really trying to do more things that will appeal to a wider variety of ages. Like supported cooking. I just sort of did this one kind of by chance, really. I was just like, what can I do that's not a story time? And I was like, well, let's do this. Take a look at the recipe. Does anyone know where that recipe came from? Peel banana, toss some grapes. Yes! I totally took my recipe from the Wiggles, the salad sauce. Thank you very much. But that worked out really well because we did a story time beforehand and we sang fruit salad. And I was like, okay guys, now we're ready to cook and here's our recipe. And we sang the recipe. And so we built in that familiarity from the start. What's really great about cooking is that chefs are in charge. They get to put in what they want. Maybe they don't want a banana or a grape in there, and that's fine. They just skip that step because they're the chef and what they say goes. The following week, we turned our fruit salads into smoothies. And that was just taking basically the same ingredients, adding water and blending it up. And they got to choose, do you want the fruit salad again or do you want a smoothie? You can make whatever you like. You are the chef, you get to choose. I will say caregivers were blown away by what their kids could do. The number one thing that is coming through the special ed world right now, and my God, it's a long time coming, but that one thing is presumed competence. And that's what I did. I gave the kids knives. I set the knives out. And the caregivers are like, what? And one actually like took the knife out of their child's hand. They tried to do hand over hand. I distracted the parents and I started chatting with them and the kids grabbed up the knives and started chopping bananas and the apples and the melons. And the parents just looked around like, I didn't know my kid could do that. I'm like, you haven't given them the chance. Now you know. And the kids ate what they made because they were so excited and so proud because they had made it themselves. And the parents are like, I guess you're making dinner tonight. I know you can do it now. So that was really, really fun. So after everyone had a great time at our opening cooking in the fall, they were like, please, we need to do this again. We want to do more of this. So in December we did it, and in December, I mean, it's not December if there's not baked goods involved. So we decorated cookies. And so I know there's a lot of allergies, and I didn't want to bump into any of them. We've got a metric ton of bakeries here in Oak Park, and any one of them would have been thrilled to help us out. But I found a gluten-free bakery in Connecticut, Izzy B's. And I went with them because they're set up to mail you things, and because it's a gluten-free bakery, I knew there was no chance of contamination. So they were really great. It was so easy to order. I got a dozen cookies and tubs of frosting, and I got a couple tubs of 2 different colors of sprinkles because everything should involve a choice. And I didn't want them to feel locked into how they were going to be doing it. So again, I gave the kids knives and frosting, and they spread the frosting and added whatever color sprinkles they wanted and got to make their own delicious treat. It was really funny because one of our regulars, he's not super verbal and he's more of a runner than like a paying attention sort of kid. And that's totally awesome, that's his style, we work with it. But he was so excited about the cooking part that he kept trying to like move it up on the schedule. We were just like, cookies? Cookies now? Now cookies. And keep waiting, you're doing good, you're doing good. But I do think that was actually probably his favorite day at the library ever. Supported gardening. This is my pride and joy. I might be most excited about doing our supported cooking, but I think this is the proudest I've been of doing anything. I've linked a Oak Park Public Library article about our new sensory garden that we're doing over at the Maze Branch. So in the past 2 years, my coworker Jenny and I have really started working on nature programs for all ages. We do baby and toddler nature every month between May and October. We do preschool nature, we do elementary nature, and I really wanted to start building in supported nature, because I think that nature is an exceptionally important part of science and STEM that gets overlooked in favor of maker systems, and I think that tying kids and family to nature can be very grounding and can really make them feel a part of the community and a part of the world. And so I decided, after attending I went to the Botanic Gardens for their nature conference in May, and I just got so inspired, and then Jenny and I walked through the Enabling Gardens, which is their hands-on sensory garden, primarily for people with disabilities, but for anyone. And I was just like, I want this. I want to do this. And I went to our assistant director, and I'm like, look at this. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And so we had a soft launch in September, which, my friends, is a terrible time to start gardening, but that's okay. We jumped in with great enthusiasm. Over here in this picture, you can see some of our activities that we had on our schedule. You can see the Supported Nature Fund handout that I made explaining to caregivers why they should take a break from therapy and homework and bring their kids out to learn nature. And I also have our Let's Garden activity board that we use for communication. So let's talk a little bit more about my Ologies Accessible Sensory Garden, because I really do love this. Why gardening? So I just got back from a conference, ATIA, where I learned that there was a study done that showed that 77% of people with multiple disabilities don't engage in community activities, and that breaks my heart. I think everyone deserves to be a part of the community. I think everyone deserves a way to give back to the community. I think that people who have disabilities are so often seen as being needed, they need to be the recipients of things, but that really devalues what they can give back. And I see gardening and nature as a way for people with disabilities to be a part of their community and give back to their community. It is calming. It allows for nurturing. It allows for people to take responsibility of something outside of themselves. It increases mental health, lowers stress, all sorts of really great things. You can read more at the Psychology Today article that's linked there. And I also have a link to that supported gardening handout from my earlier slide. Communication is key. So, this is a crescendo core board from Assistive Ware's Proloquo to Go augmentative communication system. That's a lot of words that probably don't necessarily make sense altogether if you are not perhaps familiar with them. Proloquo to Go is a communication app that you can download on an iPad. It is what my brother uses to speak. It is where my mother works as tech support. And so this is a core board this is what like the main screen of the AAC would be. So it's got your basic verbs and pronouns, sentence building, things like that. And I got it printed on a yard sign. Officially from Zazzle, thanks to Assistive Wear, because I think it's important for everyone to see their language reflected in their community. I go out into our schools, I know how many students use AAC. I know that there's a kindergarten classroom in our district where 5 of the kids are using AAC. I go and I visit the ECEs, and yesterday I did a story time for them. They came over to our Joel branch, and half the kids used AAC, and you know what? So did I. I have it loaded onto one of our staff iPads, and I modeled communication by using it to help me read the books. We read Marta, Big and Small. We read Jump, Seals on the Bus. And I also modeled commenting because, as Christy said, the kids are taught a lot of I want, I need, but that's not really communication, is it? That's barely the very beginning of it. And so by modeling commenting, I was helping all of the kids feel included in the story time, that their languages and their way of speaking was being not only respected, but reflected as well. I was actually lucky enough to get the full suite of assistive wear programs for free. I emailed my mother, texted her. I was like, hi, I'm a librarian, and I've got a lot of kids who use AAC, and I really want to do this. And she's like, oh, here you go. Thanks, Mom. But just because I have that in doesn't mean that it's impossible for other people to get that in too. There's also a lot of free programs. So this is the one that I use because I've got the most familiarity with it, I'm the most comfortable with it, and but there's a lot of options out there, and it's you can buy posters of this, you can buy posters of other different brands, you can use free apps, there's lots of options to make everyone see themselves in our community. Another thing that we plan to do is use our 3D printer to create labels for all of our plants and everything in Braille too. That's a really neat accessibility use of some awesome technology. So, like I said, we started small because we started in September. Not much grows in September. But here's two of our regulars, two little guys, and we planted a lot of flowers. You can see this little guy is counting all the heads on a flower. This other little guy is digging in the dirt. We do have accessibility modifications. So some of I'm so not a gardener. I'm like, I think this is a trowel. Some of the trowel handles have thicker foam handles to make it easier to grip, so that not everyone can grip all the way down. So we've got things like that in place, and of course, not everyone wants to touch the dirt. So we've got gloves available if we've got dirt in bags, so they can feel the heaviness and textures of different kinds of soils through the baggie. Some kids might choose to just watch and direct, and there's no wrong way to participate. We also made a fairy garden, because what, I ask you, is a garden without a fairy garden? And so the kids got to pick the layout. How did they want it laying down? So here we've got one of our friends creating a little village and taking a little gnome hut and deciding what he wants to do. This little guy actually, he had just been adopted from China about a month and a half before this program. So he spoke almost no English, and his mother was just blown away to see how well he took to planting. He knew exactly where he wanted to plop those plants in and where he wanted to lay stuff out. And so it's been really fun to watch him come to our programs and grow, because he and his mom use it as a way to bond and get to know each other. And so because this is a garden outside, this is over at our Maze branch, so the one by the expressway. They can visit it anytime they want to. It's always there. And we do all of the senses represented at all times. Let's see. I tried to make a note of all of this so I don't forget. Flowers for color and scent. Dirt and dragon's breath for feel. If you guys have never felt dragon's breath, it's amazing. It's almost felt-like. It's really weird. There's kale for taste and for color, because as it turns out, kale starts off green and turns purple as it gets colder. That was cool. And we've got wind chimes for sound, and also stories. We read a story every single time, and we always read the same one. For the 2018 season, it was the Anywhere Garden. But this year we found one that's a little more simple, it's a little shorter, but it still has the urban gardening theme. You're going to very correctly ask me, well, what is this great book? And I'm going to say, I don't remember at all, I'm sorry. But trust me, there's great urban gardening books out there. And so all in ages and all abilities, that really meant a lot to me. Our facilities manager has been amazing. This actually actually was not an accessible space. And he was like, okay, yeah, we'll just lay out a sidewalk, that's no problem. And he did. You can see it poking out between our friend here who's putting some dirt in on top of the daffodil bulbs. So we actually had a high school special ed class come for a field trip. And that was really fantastic. It really proved to me that this is an all ages program, that we can reach, you know, our elementary kids and our high school kids and our preschoolers with this one location. So here you can see our friend watering the flowers, there's planting. You can see that we've got kneeling pads in the back for anyone who needs a little bit more of a softer sensory feel. Maybe, you know, it's just too much for them to be on the hard ground. Also, you've got the kids who, they go to the library because it's a library field trip, and they're like, where are the books? So he goes inside, he grabs some books, he comes outside and he reads, but he's in the garden. He is part of the group. And if that's where he wants to be participating, mazel tov, I love it. Everyone can do it, there's no wrong way. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some supports that we've got for when you're visiting the library. So here you can see, this is our children's room downstairs. This is our very, very popular train room. So I've got that giant board, the core word board that we have at the garden. I've got it taped and laminated up on that train room wall. I actually put it up a couple years ago for October's National Augmentative Communication Awareness and Acceptance Month, and I just never took it down because everyone uses it and benefits from it. So not only do the kids who use AAC come in and see their language represented, but all sorts of other kids can use it too. There was kids playing a game, and this was their end point because this is where they would go and stop. And they're building that into part of their game. And this is where we'll have kids and grown-ups talking about each word and matching the word to the letters and to the images. And I think what this does is just so exciting, because then when they go to school and they see someone using an AAC device in their classroom, or if they're out about in the community and they see someone using it, it's not like, what are they doing with that? They're like, oh yeah, I already saw that, that's so cool. I know how to talk with that too. And I think that is super empowering and accepting on some really high levels for a wide variety of people. Because of course, I think we all know the best way to adjust people's attitudes is to just bombard them with being familiar with different things. Of course I see this person with autism in my library. Of course there's a person with Down syndrome in the grocery store. Of course there's a person in a wheelchair with a mounted computer so they can speak. I've seen these things already, and I don't have to worry about awareness. We've moved into acceptance. And I think that is super important. So for our story times, we always had weighted pillows and fidgets, of course. We've had a social story for visiting the library available on our website. And just this month, we started building kind of a kit, I guess. We got everything loaded into a backpack. I've got it back there. I meant to bring it up with me. I did. We can look at it later. But we'll keep the backpack at the desk, and families can get what they need from it. There's a do-it-yourself schedule for while you're at the library. There's noise-canceling headphones. There's pinwheels for that breathing. There's brushes if they're doing the Wilcox brushing protocol as a calming activity. There's sunglasses, resistance bands. There's wiggle seats, so if they're sitting at a computer or they need to focus, they can sit on those. And so we're going to be building that into people's visits and what they're expecting here at the library as well. So one thing that we've got that people can borrow they're called scanning pens from the C Pen Company. And these are really cool. They are a really great support for people who need some extra accommodations for reading or maybe even test taking. Because you can plug in headphones and you scan the words on a page and it will read it aloud to you. You can choose to define any of the words, and there's one model where it can be translated into another language. There's French, Spanish, Chinese, and Dutch are the ones I believe that they've got. And so we have two of these that can circulate. They have been very, very popular with our families who have kids who have dyslexia. But there's a lot of ways that it can play a support. And I got ours on Amazon, I think is one of their vendors. They're about $100 each, so not too bad. And they're really cool. And that's a hyperlinked article that our marketing department wrote up about the pens and use and things like that you can check out. We're really, really big here on celebrating months that center people, specifically that center the people who have a disability or have a challenge, not like their parents or people around them, but the actual people and their cultures and what they're bringing to the world. Own voices is something that we talk about in terms of diversity of books, but that should definitely not be left just to be at race. There's so many different ways to, there's so much intersection is what it really is. And so paying attention to what the people with disabilities are saying. So we celebrate, of course, October is AAC Acceptance Month. I put up the AAC Users Bill of Rights, which you can find online. I put up the prompt hierarchy, which is levels of how you engage with a student or someone with a disability. And for a shockingly long time, as in maybe like 3 years ago, the last prompt was take their hand and make them do it. And I think most people can agree that that does not fly with any child, and just because they have a disability doesn't mean that it can fly with them. And in fact, so many people with disabilities have been taught how to follow along and do what they're told by so many adults around them. They're at great, grave risk for abuse of all types. And the fact that teachers and educators and people around them thought that it was okay to take their hand and make them talk or make them do something, you think, oh, that's horrifying. Can you imagine doing that to a typically developing 8-year-old? They're not complying, so you're just going to force them to do it? That is abuse. And so within the past couple years, that last hierarchy, so you've gotten to the very last thing, nothing is working, now it's find something more motivating. Or accept that communication is a privilege and a choice. If they don't want to be communicating, well, that's okay, because we all go through times when we don't want to be communicating either. And so that is all a part of centering people with disabilities and making them, putting the focus on them and what they need. There's an Indiana government group about, I don't remember their exact name, but every year they do this fabulous campaign about, disability acceptance. And this year was my all-time favorite. So here's a little boy that says, I'm not your inspiration, I'm your classmate. How dehumanizing is it to look at a child with a disability and say, your only purpose here is to make us all feel better, to teach us something? No! It's a person, it's a kid, it's your friend down the street, it's your neighbor. There is another one that is an older gentleman who is blind. I'm not your inspiration, I'm your neighbor. So take the emphasis off of the people around everyone. We shouldn't be focusing on, what can we do? Well, what should we be doing for the kids? How can we best give the kids what they need? Less about, let's make mommy and daddy feel better. Let's do this, let's do that. Focus on the kids, focus on the adults, focus on the people. And I think that with these switches, modeling these switches, we can start to make differences as well. One way is Autism Acceptance Month. Now, a lot of people, including Autism Speaks, they like to push autism awareness. But you know, it is time that we follow the lead of autistic self-advocates, and we just work on listening to what they have to say. And what they have to say is, I have a culture, I am a person, I want to be part of your community too, and I want you to welcome and learn about my community and my culture. So you might have seen some of the signs that I've put up. This is from the Neurodiversity Library, which is an amazing website and resource. And so they've got this whole series of neurodivergent narwhals. And you guys, these narwhals are the cutest, best things in the entire world. I love them. We keep these up year-round because there's never not a time to accept the people in our community. It should not, of course, be limited just to April. We should not be lighting it up blue. We should not be putting up signs about, you know, from Autism Speaks. We should be putting up signs from autistic people. There's a big community. There is a big culture. They are proud of their culture. And the best things that we can do is to support and lift up those voices. If you go on to Twitter, for example, the hashtag #ActuallyAutistic is filled with such bright, amazing people with wonderful things to say who get drowned out by the people who want to focus on the poor parents and the poor family and the poor teachers. I read this book, see again, I don't remember the title. Too many books. But it just came out, and it is about a little girl with autism, and she is going with her family to her aunt's wedding. And for the most part, it's a really charming, enjoyable story. But it starts off with, it's the start of summer vacation, and it starts off with her giving her teacher a card that says, "My dad says you deserve a really great vacation after teaching me all year long." And I'm like, what? What? Her dad said that to her? To imply that because she had autism, she was a problem? No. No. That's not what we want to be sharing or modeling. That's not what we want to be sharing with the parents themselves. We should be helping the parents see how wonderful their kids are, and how, yeah, there's definitely some things your kids are going to do and feel that you've not experienced before, but that doesn't make them wrong. That doesn't mean your child should be eradicated, like Autism Speaks would like. That doesn't mean that they're not going to have a really great, happy, fulfilling life. It just means it's going to look a little different, and it's going to be a little harder. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. It doesn't mean that you should feel sad and sorry. Of course there's going to be like time to be like, this wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't what I expected. I think a lot of parents go through that because kids tend to have a mind of their own anyway and don't always do what you had hoped they would do. It's a little more of, a little more of a big thing, perhaps, when your kid has something really significant going on. But that doesn't mean that it's the end of anything. And I think the more that we can lift up the voices of people who have autism, and when they say, we are against, for example, ABA therapy because of how this impacted me and how this made me hate myself, then they deserve to be heard. They deserve to have their voices amplified, carried out. This is something that we are in a really great, unique place where we can reach the family members and we can talk to them about how, yeah, your child might be different, your child might have some challenges, but look, here's one space in the community where you're always welcome, and we always have things that can help you. And we can help bridge that, so if you're comfortable here, maybe you're gonna be comfortable going to the Children's Museum next. We can help you grow this, because your life is not over, their life is not over, and we can do that. We just have to listen. So that is my spiel on why I am a fan of Autism Acceptance Month and not awareness. A little bit about why I sent out that long email about ABA with links. And I really encourage you guys to check out the blogs and tweets of the people who have autism and see what they're saying and what you can bring into your libraries. Here are some cool resources. I just got back from the ATA conference in Orlando. It happens every year at the end of January. It is assistive technology for adults and kids with disabilities. A similar one is Closing the Gap, which happens in Minneapolis every autumn. I've been to both of them recently, and guys, I have come back so much more engaged and excited than I ever have from a library conference. Take a look at some of these things that I just learned about. So Ubi Duo, Bluetooth, tiny little laptops, basically. And it's where you can type your communication. And you can see what the other person's typing up top, you can see yours on the bottom, and you can have a conversation like that with someone who is deaf, or someone who can't speak, or has challenges speaking. And instead of the writing and speaking, you guys are on even ground. You're communicating in exactly the same way. And that is so empowering, because people don't need to feel more different and more other. We can help include everyone. Makers Making Change is this amazing Canadian organization that uses technology, 3D printing, laser cutting, to make accessibility supports. There was just a news thing done with them on a San Francisco channel. But they'll have like hacker days where everyone gets paired up with someone who has a disability, and they talk about what's going to help you in your daily life, and they make it and they design it right there. So they do all sorts of things. One of the examples he showed was very basic MP3 player. So it's got a Raspberry Pi, and you plug in an MP3. To someone who has Alzheimer's, it's a very simple, old-style radio that will bring back memories, and they just can hit play and stop and back and forward. So it's using the technology to bring them, the music and the memories that will help. They 3D printed key grips to make keys easier to open. One of my colleagues was like, I need that. And I was like, we'll 3D print you one. Things like that. Patents, I had to write this one down. Promoting achievement through technology instruction for all students. It's an Indiana group. And I went to some of their presentations, and the things they're doing is amazing. So look into them and their webinars. Braillebook is books in Braille loaded onto like a little flash drive. So cool. Audio Directions Assisted Listening Technology. It's a brand new company that is doing new types of telecoils for people who have hearing aids or cochlear implants. Rather than coiling a room, you can have a personal one right next to you, or it can be built into your seat cushion, and then someone wears a mic and you can hear it wherever you are. Skoog Music is my favorite. I'm gonna get Skoogs. It is a cube, and each cube has a different bump on the side, different color, and you use it to play music. And you hook it up to GarageBand. You can hook it up to Google's coding spaces. You can use it to code and do all sorts of really amazing stuff. So it can be really, really basic, hitting like Twinkle Twinkle for your preschoolers, just matching your color notes. Or it can be something that's really sophisticated for your older elementary and teen users. It pairs really well with something called Beams, B-E-A-M-Z. And that is a musical device that, again, can hook up to GarageBand or anything. And you create music. You choose what instrument you want it to sound like. You create music by breaking the 4 beats. And that's amazing because it doesn't take a lot of fine motor control, and that makes it accessible to a ton of people. Whether it's because they're old and have arthritis, or maybe they've got a muscular dystrophy or CF, and they just can't grip. Well, they can just go like this, and they can make their music. And it's error-free because it can sound like whatever they want it to sound like. I went to presentations about universal design for learning. Has anyone heard about that? It's kind of mind-blowing, and one of the things I've been taking away from it is that the more that we make things, more that we mainstream accessibility, the better off everyone is. So I'm using a mic because I don't want anyone to have to self-disclose a hearing impairment or challenges hearing. I'm live captioning to the best of my ability. I haven't been paying attention how well it's doing, but I'm live captioning for some extra backup. One of the things that I heard was, what if every 3 years we took a look at what were like the top accommodations that we were offering most of our students or patrons, and we just made that part of learning for everyone? And I'm like, holy crap, what if? Can you imagine? I mean, I don't have a hearing impairment, but I definitely struggle to keep my attention if there's not a microphone being used. I need to hear really clearly. I do better when I can read rather than hear. And I mean, so that's me, and who's never needed an accommodation or support. And here I am finding that I was doing so much better and learning so much more at the conference sessions that used a microphone and live captioned. And so why shouldn't we live caption all the movies or all of the shows that talks that we do at libraries? Why shouldn't we do closed captioning on every single movie and TV show that we show and stream in our libraries? Those won't just help the select few, they will help the many. There's a cartoon of a kid in a wheelchair and a bunch of kids standing in front of the stairs, and the janitor is shoveling off the stairs. And the kid in the wheelchair is like, or the guy is saying, I'll get to your ramp when I'm done with the stairs so, all these kids can go up. And the kid in the wheelchair is like, but if you do the ramp, every single one of us can get up right now. And so it's that little shift of thinking, well, yes, this could benefit some, but most of what can benefit some can, in fact, benefit all. I learned about how to use Alexa to make learning accessible, mindful approaches to support students with emotional disabilities. I learned some really great relaxing apps that I think will go really well in like all of my story times. I'm thinking about like the great big giant shake, rattle, and read we have up here. There's like 80 kids, it's a little chaotic. Well, guess what? Now I can bring everyone down and quiet, maybe make some grown-ups stop talking, with lots of different, techniques I learned from that. Live captioning, accessible webinars, get your high schoolers and those science groups to make accessibility things for your library. So many things for kids with special needs. Focus on therapies. What's going to make you better? What's going to make you more neurotypical? But we should be playing into, what do they want to do? What do they like doing? What are their hobbies? And so really working on bringing all of those things in. One presentation I went to was from Rachel Herron. She's part of the Patents Project. And she said, I work with kids who read with their ears better than their eyes. Yes! Yes! That is how we can talk to our caregivers. Auditory readers. Visual reading is not everyone's gift. Auditory reading is a finely honed skill. There's so many caregivers who are like, audiobooks are cheating. No, they're not. It's hard. I can't listen to an audiobook and pull up anything. I am not an auditory reader. That's a really impressive skill. There is no cheating when it comes to reading. I feel like this is something that we, again, are in an excellent place to really push forward the idea of different types of reading. Auditory, visual. There's so many ways to get the information and access the information. One of them is not better than another just because we've done it longer. It's things like that. Let's see, other things I wanted to talk about. There have been some really great webinars lately. My colleague Genevieve and I did an online class with the University of Wisconsin-Madison from Bryce Kozlov. Did anyone else do that one? It was Disability Community in the Library. It was amazing. You guys, if she offers this class again, this was her second time, so she should. It is so well worth it. It was $200 for 4 weeks, and she herself is a librarian who has a disability, and the insights and the things that we learned and talked about were just so great. She's got a blog too, so you can look her up. Right now there's an upcoming e-course called Building Accessible and Inclusive Library Communities. It's being done by Carly Spina, S-P-I-N-A. And it again looks really, really great. We're talking about how, you know, we're doing like a master plan of our library right now. And I'm like, I want to be on this committee. I want to bring in universal design. I want to do all of this because of course you make things accessible for wheelchairs. You're making things accessible for strollers. And again, it's the idea that if you build in the accessibility, everyone benefits and it doesn't look like a tacked on thing. And I think that we owe it to all of our patrons to make the library, you know, as usable as we can. One last thing I learned about at ATIA was the Job Advocacy Network, maybe? It's JAN.org. And they do about 100 webinars every year. The one that I went to was about accommodating non-apparent disabilities in the workforce, which I found very, very interesting. But they do a ton of webinars to help staff members feel more comfortable around people with disabilities. And so they're a phenomenal resource in general. They can also chat with them, email with them. They're really great about supports and finding things like that. They said 59% of their suggestions and supports are free. It's just a matter of knowing how to rearrange and create things. So you can search, there's like a whole network of things that you can just search and explore. And so that seems to be a really cool opportunity as well. So, I talked a lot, I said I would, but that is about it. Does anyone have any questions?
Were you one of the only librarians at ATIA? You think
Yep. Yep, I absolutely was. They would go around the room going, raise your hand if you're a PT, SLP, educational resource teacher. They'd be like, do we got anyone? Librarian. But they were really excited. And I actually had some really great conversations too because I talked with someone who works at Assistive Wear, where my mom does, but she was like, so one of the schools that she works with, they don't have librarians, they've got paras. And she's like, they say that their library is, you know, inclusive and accessible because it has some high-low. And she's like, I need Don Johnston, you know, books with pictures, and I need, you know, all of these accessible things. I'm like, you should really reach out to your public library because they'd be happy to have some guidance on things that you want and get those, you know, families in. So I was able to make some good connections and strides and, you know, remind people that we're here. Hey, help, come visit. We'll play. It's all good.
You talked about circulating the scanners, the tech scanners. Have you thought about circulating other adaptive tech?
Absolutely. I definitely want to. The thing is just trying to figure out what our community needs, because we had talked with some families who were looking for like specifically dyslexia-related resources, and I was like, well, I can help with that. I can definitely do that. And so, yes, I want to do more. I'm just not sure which direction to take it in just yet. So if anyone has ideas, bring it on. I've got a kit-related budget that I would love to, you know, test things out with. All right, well, my email is in the presentation. It is sharris@oppl.org. Please reach out anytime. Yeah. we're all in this together. So the more ideas and things that we can share and bring to each other, I just think it's so much fun. It's so fun.
Thank you, Shelley.